Greetings, salutations, it's me, James, your BA Sensei, back with another Power Query tutorial. In today's tutorial session, we are going to do something rather esoteric and very niche. And it's going to involve the Table.Group function. And we're going to use the fifth argument, which is the comparer argument, to do the following. Look at this data set over here. We got my broker statements. And you can see for each day in January, my broker had a broker fee for all of the trades. So what I want to do is I want to bucket these fees. In this case, let's say buckets of 5,000. And so you can see these are all code 1, and all the broker fees up until that point adds up to 4988. I want to bucket them because they were under 5,000. Bucket number 2, under 5,000, and then bucket number 3, and then 4. So these buckets are basically buckets of 5,000. If I want to do it buckets of, let's say, 3,000, I just refresh that and say refresh, and it will give me the new buckets. You can see that should be very close to 3,000. If I push it over, it would be over that threshold. Let me show you how to do it. All right, very first step, as always, you click on your data set, go to data, and you say from Table.Range. This opens Power Query. I normally take out the changed type step that automatically add for the data types. Just take it off in this case. So now what we're going to be looking at is I'm going to show you a couple of properties that we're going to be exploiting to solve our problem. First of all, let's add an index here. So I'm just going to say add index column from 0. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is you can see it starts counting from 0. The reason is that basically we're going to use, you see, if I click here on that little sidebar over there, it gives me the row as a record. And this is record 0 corresponding to the index. And then this is record 1 corresponding to the index. And then if we go 31, that is actually record number 30. So that's how I can use the index, exploit the index to iterate through things. Now, the second thing I want to show you is the cool function that we are going to use. The function is called List.Range. All right, in order to solve a problem. I'm just going to quickly show you how that works. Let's add a little step here. So first of all, List.Range needs a list. This is a table, not a list. So if I want to work on the broker fee, that's what I'm going to use for my dynamic grouping. I'm just going to put in square brackets broker fee. Now this is going to give me the broker fee column as a list. You can see it's saying list. Right. So now the function I'm going to use is List.Range. And in List.Range, it takes an argument that says the offset. I'm going to say offset is 0, and we take it from there. Cool, it just gives you that. So the next argument there is, where do you want to start your offset from? Let's say 1. So this is basically saying start at record number 0, right? And I'm going to say like start at record number 0 for 1 instance. Gives me the first one. I'm going to say, okay, cool, 0 for the first 2 instances. First 3. We're going to use this iteration principle to do our iteration, right? So let's say I want to start at record 10, and it starts at record 10 for 3. You can see. Let's go back to 0 and number 1. This gives me the first record. And then on top of that, we're going to use List.Sum, right? And List.Sum basically will just summarize that. So you can see the sum is 223. And then we say, okay, 2 records on, iterated is 872. Cool. Let's say our limit is 1,000. 3 is going to push it over 1,000. So that's our grouping. Our grouping is actually going to stop at 2. So now I'm going to show you another thing. So what I'm going to do is you can see at record 1, it's basically 223. I'm going to add this clause there. It says, is it bigger than 1,000? It's going to say false. It's not bigger than 1,000, right? And record number 2, it's not bigger than 1,000, but record number 3, true. So everything from record number 3 onwards would be bigger than 3 or bigger than 1,000, which means they belong into a different group. We're going to use this in grouping to basically group it dynamically in these buckets. All right, cool. Now that you know the theory, the next thing that we need to do is, now that we got the index, we now need to start doing the grouping. So we're going to go to transform, group by. And we're going to say, do advanced one. We want to group by the date. That's our primary key there, or the thing we want to group by. And we want to group by index. And now the next thing here is we want to group, operation should be all rows. And let's call this guy detail. Correct. So now what it did is, you can see, it basically it grouped things, but we actually have only 1 record in this table for each group, right? That's not the issue. That's pretty great. We want to now exploit that by going into the group function and adding that list range in there. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so let's quickly look at this group statement over there. There's a lot of fluff in there. You can see everything after this underscore, you can just delete. and it will still work. Let's go like this. And enter. Oh, it still works. It still works. Brilliant. Okay. Next thing that we need to do is, the next argument in the group, table group, is group kind. We're just going to put it as a 0. That's the fourth argument. We're not going to look at that. The one that we want to look at, where the magic happens, is the fifth argument, which is called the comparer argument of the group function. Right. So now I'm just going to press Shift and enter. And now we're going to use that list range. All right. So you can see, now that we know that each index, counting each row is 0 to 30, 32, we're going to take advantage of that. So we're going to declare in brackets, we're going to say current, our current row, and let's say our next row. Right? We're going to use that to iterate through the list of ranges. And we're going to say rocket dash, cool, and Shift enter. I'm just going to get a little space there, and I'm going to say list range. Correct. And as you remembered, we said list range. I'm going to look at the table. You know, the previous step is add index is actually the table. We say yes. Cool. And we want to take the broker fee column and create a list. So now this is a list with the broker fees in it. A list of broker fees. Correct. So now, as you remember, with the list range function, we need to start at row number 0, 1, 2, and 3. So here I'm going to say current, my current row index, using the index column, so row 0, correct, that's my offset, that's where I start. And then I want to say, take my next row, which is the index, the next one, less the current index, yes, plus 1, because remember we have that 0, so there's always going to be that gap of 1s. We need to add the 1 back. And this is actually going to give us exactly what we want. And then we just need to wrap it. This is going to iterate through it until it finds its bucket. But we still need to define the bucket. We say List.Sum, correct, and wrap it in there. Now this is going to do the sum of each one of those iterations. But we need to know where to stop. So we're saying like, if it's bigger than, let's say, 2,000, then you stop. And then we can just close it out over here. Now it's going to give me an error. It's going to say we cannot convert to a number because you can see that this broker fee is actually alphanumeric. So what I do there is I just wrap it in there. I just go like Number.From, and I wrap that in there, and I go like that, and I say lovely. And it now actually created the dynamic grouping for me. So let's quickly click on this first one. So you can see there, it basically put 3 rows in there. So you can see the latest index there was 2. 2 less 0, right, is 2, plus 1, it's 3, because that satisfies the 2,000 requirements, less than 2,000. You can see if you add the broker fees, it's less than 2,000. Cool. And the next one, you can see it's 2. And that's how we did the grouping. Isn't that cool? So that's using the comparer argument of group by, just by understanding how lists work and how this true false thing works over there. All right, the next thing I want to do is I want to remove everything except the details. So I'm going to remove other columns. And now I'm going to say add a column, but add an index from 1, because this is now my actual grouping. Let's call this the fee bucket. Correct? Cool. And now what we do is we just expand this and we say do not use original. And there we go. There's your fee bucket group. Wonderful. That actually solved the issue. So here you can see it. All right, we're almost there. We're almost there. So now the next thing that I want to do is, so I want to now take this perimeter table. I'm just going to say there's the perimeters, because I want to kind of like, if I put 5,000 in there, it should update that table over there. So I'm just going to say take that and go to data from table and range, pulls it in here, remove the change type step over there. We call this perimeters. And I'm just going to say Table.Transpose, and that will transpose the table. And then I'm going to say first row is headers. There we go, root grouping limit. And now I basically have that. Now I'm going to go back to my broker trades and just note there, this is row 0. Okay, so row 0. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to go like, yes, advanced editor. And you can see where I hard coded that 2000. I'm just now going to refer to perimeters. Yes, and I'm going to say the column name was grouping limit. And I want to look at row 0. Cool, and that should do it. I just say, okay, done. Should still work. Now I can close and return it. Cool, and now let's change this to 3,000 and then rerun this. There you go. So you look at your first bucket, that adds up to 2921. If you included that one, it will be over that. The second bucket, you can see that added up to 2419. If you added one more, it would have gone over. It's pretty cool. So there's your buckets over there. Well, I hope you learned something new in Power Query using the fifth argument of the group by function. Pretty cool. BA Sensei signing out.